Hanok village does feel like a really small neighborhood. So I don't have a whole lot of furniture and things like that. I sleep on the floor. Like, I'm still getting to meet more and more people that actually live in the village. It was really fun for me.
So today we are here to talk about living in Hanok, and I'm very curious about what it's like for you. So the first question for you is, what is it like to live in Hanok?
It's amazing to live in a Hanok, but it's also really different from the way that I grew up and how I lived in the US. The shape of my Hanok is like a C shape, but I only live in kind of like an L shape of it. So I have 4 rooms that are L-shaped total. And the biggest difference, I would say, is that the Hanok incorporates both the inside and outside into my living space. So a lot of times, especially when it's nice outside, I'll run across the courtyard and go from one room to the other instead of what I'm used to in like an American house where we have hallways inside of the home.
And how did you find this beautiful Hanok?
Well, I've been really lucky that I have friends that have helped me do that. So I had a lot of friends looking around different parts of Seoul, looking for places for me to live. And one of my friends was just like, well, I think what she said was, don't worry about it. We're going to find you a place to live. But she speaks Korean and I don't speak Korean. And so I can only assume that's what she was telling me.
Right.
But basically we had another friend, a mutual friend, who owned the Hanok, but their home is actually in a different part of Seoul. And the Hanok wasn't lived in since they owned it. They just used it as basically an art gallery where they had a lot of collectibles. And so they were willing to allow me to live there. So I was really fortunate to have generous friends. And that's how I ended up living in this Hanok. So it did take a little bit of work to kind of bring it up to living conditions.
Right.
Lots of cleaning and things like that. But just a few minor changes that I had to make. And I had to install a laundry and a sink in the bathroom. It didn't have a sink. So
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Kind of the old style where you just have a faucet that goes right to the floor.
Oh, and how old is the
Hanok is a little over 80 years old, so there have only been like a few modifications to it since that time. They added on the bathroom,
Yeah.
but that was years ago, and that's kind of the only real change.
You know, that's really cool because I've never lived in a traditional Korean house, Hanok. So like it's very interesting to hear how it all worked out for you.
Yeah. Well, I've always, really wanted to immerse myself in the traditional Korean living. So, this kind of opportunity fell into my lap, luckily, and I really tried to remain as true as I could in this, modern era to more of a traditional way of living. So I don't have a whole lot of furniture and things like that. I sleep on the floor, which is new for me.
Okay.
But because the Hanok has underground or under the house heating, it actually is better to sleep on the floor. And once you kind of get used to kind of the hardness of sleeping on the floor, it actually, it's really nice. I really enjoy it. It's actually harder for me to sleep in a bed now because they're too soft.
And now you're used to the hard floor.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you have so many things that you enjoy about living in Hanok.
Yeah.
But if you have to pick one thing out of them, what would it be?
My favorite thing is actually like when it's raining outside, especially early in the morning, and I'm in bed and I kind of roll over and open up the doors and then just lay in bed and watch the rain out in the courtyard. It's just very tranquil, very soothing, and I enjoy that probably the most.
I can already imagine like the ASMR, the rain and the sound.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, and I'm really lucky to be able to do that in the middle of a huge city. So that area is really special.
It must make you feel like you're inside, but also you're very close to the outside because there's the courtyard, like internal courtyard, should I say that?
Yes, it's an internal courtyard. So that's the other kind of big difference is that the front door is a gate. So when I have people come over or that knock on the door, I have to actually leave the main part of the house, go outside, and then answer it. So that's a little different too if you're not used to it. But if anyone has watched like a K-drama, they kind of know or have seen, people running across the courtyard to get the door.
Right.
But other than that, yeah, I think it's kind of like an eco-friendly way of living. So I don't have screens on the windows or anything like that. So sometimes it's a little like camping, where you might have some visitors like spiders and insects and stuff like that. But I think it's also you feel a lot closer to nature living that way.
Do you think that's the biggest difference compared to where you lived in the US?
That, and also kind of like I said before, it's a more simplistic way of living. I don't have as many like material things as I did when I lived in the US. My house in the US, we had more rooms than we had people living in the house. And so you're kind of accumulating stuff all the time, I feel like, to try and, fill up the rooms. Whereas in the Hanok, because it's a little smaller and you kind of just, buy what you need, more necessities rather than just filling it up. Because the Hanok itself is so beautiful the way that it is. There's just the hanji paper and the wood. I love that kind of, more rustic interior. So I really don't have to fill it up with things.
It's pretty functional, you would
It is
say.
very functional, yeah.
Clearly, there are so many good things that you enjoy about living in Hanok. If you have to pick one thing that you don't like as much, what would that
Yes.
be?
Well, like I said before, it can be like camping. So sometimes the bugs and stuff are an issue. But since I've lived there for a while now, I've kind of adjusted to that difference, and I'm used to it. There's kind of give and take with any kind of living arrangements, and so this one I will take definitely. I'll take the bugs too.
You're okay with it.
I'm
You're
okay
okay with
with
the
it,
little
yeah.
friends.
Yes. And I think that more modernized Hanuks that people live in, they don't have those issues.
I think another cool thing about your experience living in Hanok is that you are actually in the middle of Hanok village, which a lot of people get to visit, but not necessarily living in as a part of it. So
Yeah.
how is it to live in a Hanok village?
Well, I think, because we are in such a huge city, but Hanok Village does feel like a really small neighborhood. Like I'm still getting to meet more and more people that actually live in the village, which is really fun for me. But when I go around, I know people's houses, or I know different like venues and stores and shops, and the owners of those places know me too. So that's what makes it really special, is we are really a community. And really, being Korean, I think everybody kind of, loves to gather and talk and be together. And so that's part of the magic of living in this traditional neighborhood in a large city.
So it sounds like you recommend people to live or at least to stay in Hanok.
Oh, yes. I think if you ever come to Korea, one of the things you have to do is stay in a Hanok at least one night, because it's an experience that you don't really get anywhere else. And because Bukchon village is actually residential, it's, people have lived there the whole time, you really get a different experience than if you go to there's other Hanok villages, but people don't really live there. They're not functioning homes. So that's the difference. And I would even suggest if you can stay with a family, some of them do have guest houses in their Hanok. So that makes it even, more magical because you're with a family that lives in the village. You do have to kind of make some adjustments, but they're pretty easy to make. And the experience of living there far outweighs any of the negative things.
I think this is really awesome to hear your experience, actual living experience in Hanok, because a lot of Koreans are very proud of the functionality of Hanok and how it's really cool in the summertime and warm in the wintertime, and how eco-friendly it is. So this was really cool to hear your experience, not just Koreans' perspective.
Yeah.
So thank you for watching today's video about living in Hanok. Thank you, Sue, for sharing your experience.
It's a pleasure being here.
And if you have any questions or if there are any other topics you would like us to talk about, please let us know on the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again. Bye.
Bye.